Story 1-1. Trying to win every argument, even if the argument does not make much sense. A lack of empathy for others, especially believing that it is their fault they have struggled in life. Story 2, simple. They take no as a child would, since the main reason people who were told no a lot are good at accepting it is simply exposure. The same reason people who have experienced more physical pain have higher pain tolerance is because they can compare current pain to a past one and judge whether it is the worst thing that has ever happened to them. So if you tell your 3-year-old no for the first time, it will be devastating to them because it is the biggest rejection they have ever had in their life. When a child loses a toy, they experience real grief because it is the worst thing that has ever happened to them so far. Your first time experiencing any negativity is the worst thing that has ever happened to you, until you experience something worse. Therefore, if you have never been told no when you finally cannot have something your way, it is the worst thing that has ever happened to you. Story 3. I, as a teacher, had a parent tell me once that I was not allowed to say no to her child because it would destroy his emerging sense of personhood. I told her she should switch to homeschooling if she did not want him to ever hear no. Story 4. They are used to wearing down other people and aggressively trying to negotiate everything. To them, a no means yes with extra steps. Story 5. There was a video of a teenage-looking man trying to enter a building. He could not understand that the police were not allowing him to go wherever he wanted. Story 6. Entitlement is acting like you and others owe them whatever they want because they were raised to get whatever they want. They assume the world outside their family will be the same. Then they fail in life because they were not raised for the real world, where the world does not revolve around them. They were raised in a fake world where their family coddled them. They expected the outside world to be the same and became furious that it is not. Story 7. They expect everyone to bail them out of their own problems caused by their poor choices and cut you off because you are toxic if you set boundaries. Story 8. Student to teacher. You treat me like an animal. Me? How? You are always telling me what to do. Doesn't anyone at home tell you what to do? No. As the scales fall from the teacher's eyes, he finally sees the Rosetta Stone that unlocks the secrets of understanding this kid's whole dynamic. Story 9. The way some people refuse to apologize, say sorry, or admit they are wrong shows that basic accountability is foreign to them. Story 10. My roommate, her husband, and our sons would sit down to dinner with her developmentally disabled brother-in-law. Her 4-year-old daughter would walk around taking food off everyone's plate. Food would be flying everywhere. I would not let her touch my plate. My roommate would say, "Oh, little sister, Mun Kitty Cat is just in a bad mood." I would reply, "No, I am not. I just know you are old enough to sit down and eat like the rest of us. You do it when I babysit you." Story 11. A client director once said, and I kid you not, I am an only child, so I am used to getting what I want during a negotiation. Story 12. They make ridiculous requests that any normal person would be totally embarrassed to make. One time when I was a kid, I won a cool pen and was very pleased. Most of the class was jealous because it was that cool. My friend straight up said, "Can I have it?" And I was so taken aback. Nobody else asked me for it, and she said it so nonchalantly. Looking back now, I realize how spoiled she and her brother were. I am so glad I said no. This is the same person who went and told on me to the teacher for wanting to play by myself on the monkey bars when she couldn't get up. We weren't even best friends. I never agreed to play with her. There were plenty of other people she could have played with. Yet I got told off. I was just tired of dealing with her. And the monkey bars were my polite way of saying, "Go bother someone else." Story 13. Throwing an absolute fit if they cannot get a table at a restaurant or come in 2 minutes before closing and get told no. Not being able to understand that they cannot use their money and status to bully others into doing what they want. Story 14. My daughter is a teacher of 5 and 6-year-olds, and she has noticed that many children do not accept no as a final answer. They try to negotiate and argue endlessly. It seems they cannot accept that no means no, and that an adult giving them an instruction in the classroom is expecting them to follow it. She finds this quite puzzling because she was certainly not raised that way. Story 15. When they disregard basic safety instructions in the workplace because they believe they know what they are doing and become angry when you finally raise your voice at them. Story 16. When the word no is seen as a cue to start negotiating or arguing, it is not the end of the discussion. It is the beginning of the discussion. They cannot tell the difference between when something is final and when there is room for flexibility. They expect everyone else to be flexible for them, but they always refuse to be flexible for anyone else. Story 17. This goes for the older generations especially. Telling anyone over 40, "No, I do not want to come to your party." A gathering of parents and relatives who will be focused on complaining and correcting the younger generation's appearance and attitude. I was forced to go once. This was supposed to be a family gathering. I will never go again. I did not even get a word in as all these older people talked over me. Now they are surprised I do not want to talk to them ever again. Respect is earned, and consent needs to be given in every situation imaginable, no matter what, who, where, or when. Just because these relatives were their parents' sweethearts and spoiled does not mean they get to still act like toddlers. Story 18. They get angry when they do not get their way. It is equally terrifying, funny, and sad to watch a grown man throw a tantrum just because he was told no. Story 19. I work with young children aged 2 to 6. The most obvious example is when you say no to a harmless request, such as, "It is not time for snack," and it results in immediate crying. I just stare at them and repeat my message or ignore it. That may work at home, but not here. Story 20. They were convicted of multiple felonies, adjudicated as a rapist, contemplated being intimate with their children, cheated on all of their spouses, and were elected president of the United States. Story 21. Believe it or not, I think it is not as simple as them failing due to denial. Quite a few people I have met over the years who are unemployed and live at home without purpose, other than their parents enabling them, are individuals who have never been told no. Their parents simply do not care enough to tell them their lifestyle is unhealthy and enable it because it is the easier choice. This results in them growing into adulthood without proper experiences and likely experiencing depression. I knew this all too well until I realized it myself and started to be the source of no in my life instead of relying on others. Most people are not so fortunate. Story 22. When they throw a tantrum over the smallest inconvenience, they expect the world to bend to their will and cannot handle the slightest delay or rejection. Story 23. I have a bad habit of saying, "Let's watch what I want to watch," to my fiancé. I am working on it and have gotten better. Story 24. They genuinely believe rules and consequences do not apply to them, and they will push boundaries endlessly until someone enforces a limit. Story 25. Throwing a fit when a place has run out of something simple like napkins or straws and yelling at the employees about it. Story 26. I know this does not answer your question, but in college 20 years ago, I babysat for 2 of my professors. One was in criminal justice and the other in psychology, which was my major. The psychologist would not let me even say the word no. One day it was raining and their toddler wanted to go play outside. I said not right now since it was pouring and the other kids did not want to go outside. They fired me after reviewing the camera footage. It was fine and just extra money, but I wonder about that kid. She would be in her late 20s now. She was not a monster back then, so I hope she grew up well. Story 27. The grabbiness does not know when or where to stop. You hang around their parents, and it is clear they only have enough patience, willpower, or stamina for an easy child. Story 28. No boundaries at all. They will push your boundaries despite obvious social cues that you are trying to decline, without shouting in their face. They believe they are entitled to your time, energy, belongings, and resources, and will either keep pushing relentlessly or hold a grudge against you if you dare to decline. Story 29. Single-parent household. Many single parents, especially mothers, try to overcompensate because their child does not have a father. My sister does this with my nephew. He is unbelievably spoiled. She spends nearly $1,000 on him every month, ordering food for him, buying him expensive shoes, driving him and his friends around town, and paying for whatever random activity he wants to do for the day. I tell my sister all the time to relax and that he does not need any of those things, but she wants him to have everything he asks for because his father is a negative influence. Story 30. I find that people who get very angry and defensive when called Karen are often Karens themselves and were likely never told no as children. Story 31. No empathy, will not lose gracefully, sense of entitlement, does not meet anyone halfway, will not compromise. Story 32. Literally had a customer say, "You are going to tell me no?" All angrily. If that is not the clearest sign, then I do not know what is. Story 33. Not respecting boundaries and then being genuinely shocked at experiencing consequences is different from people who only act shocked to manipulate others, which can sometimes still be a sign of manipulation. Story 34. Just take or use what they want without asking first. Then, if you say something, they turn it back on you and make it seem like you cannot share when they actually took it. They do not take any accountability for their actions. It is always someone else's fault. They say, "I was not told," or "You should have stopped me," or "I should not have been there," and so on. Story 35. A woman in her 60s at work tells people things like, "I'm coming through here shortly. We hired younger employees," and they tell her they do not care, to which she gasps and pretends they're not moving is the end of the world. Other co-workers avoid her because she is difficult. She also uses all her vacation time and then takes short-term leave every year. This is expected to happen again by the end of the month. She will be off until November, returning just in time for Thanksgiving and Christmas pay. Story 36. Bro, just out of college. I had a roommate whose parents were both doctors. Sometimes we would alternate paying for each other's meals. On my day to pay, we both chose an entree from a restaurant for takeout. Then he asked me to add 2 appetizers, priced at $14 and $17, and I told him no. I placed the order, picked up the food, and he stayed mad at me for over a week, ending our alternating payment arrangement. He was well aware that I was broke, and I had no idea why he was so mad until a mutual friend told me he had never been told no before. Story 37. Briefly dated a man who is the youngest son of someone incredibly rich. The house had hidden doors activated by light switches and extensive grounds rather than a garden. He was incredibly entitled. He would make demands on my time as if he expected me to drop everything I was doing and see him within 20 minutes of a call. I always refused because a girl has a life and he could not handle it. Story 38. I see a lot of people panic when getting arrested because it is the first time they were told no. I watch a lot of police camera videos out of boredom. Story 39. I have someone in my team at work who constantly argues back. It is their way or the highway, and they are upset that promotions are not given to them just for doing their job. They told me about their family and it clicked. The problem is, if they stopped behaving this way, they would probably get a promotion. Their work is great, but their temperament is well known and people avoid them. Story 40. Tantrums. They rage, swear, and scream when they do not instantly have their way. As adults, grown middle-aged people. Ego. They blame anyone for anything. Never in a lifetime have they ever been the culprit or responsible for a single problematic thing. Everyone else is. Story 41. They will not take responsibility for anything happening in their life. Instead, they expect their friends and family to fix it for them, even if they caused the situation themselves. Story 42. In the workplace, it is usually easy to spot entitled adults who were spoiled children. This often happens when they go for a promotion and do not get it, but someone else on their team does. The result is a frosty atmosphere and tantrums. There are loud declarations of unfairness and threats to leave, although they rarely do. All they are doing is proving the hiring manager correct. Of course, sometimes people are taken advantage of and not promoted when they should be. In those cases, do not react publicly. Instead, gather yourself and leave a job like that, leaving the management behind. Do not demean yourself with tantrums. Story 43. Being inconsiderate about everything and entitled. My brother's father passed away. He lives several states away and had no one on his side of the family to support him. My mom, sister, and I drove down to be with him while he grieved. His daughter, my niece, who was about 13 at the time and did not live with him but used to visit during summers, treated him like a piggy bank. She wanted to come with us. I thought that was a great idea until it wasn't. We stayed in a hotel and visited my brother each day until we had to leave. There were 2 beds, and this kid pouted about having to sleep in a bed with someone else. Me, my sister, or my mom. We are all women. To quiet her, my mom slept on the couch, even though my sister and I offered her one of our spots. You'd think my niece would have gotten the hint after our arguments. But no, she was just happy she got her way. One night, while we were having dinner and talking, enjoying being there for my brother, his daughter suddenly left and sat in my mom's vehicle until we were leaving. I don't know how long she sat there. We forgot about her after checking on her. She could have come and joined us at any time. My mom said she went to take a nap in the car. Okay, fine. When we finally got ready to leave, I was standing by the car window when I noticed it roll down and saw my niece. Without missing a beat, she said, "Can we just go? I just came here to go shopping." I turned my head quickly and said, "Your grandfather just passed away, and your father has no one. You haven't even tried to be there for your dad or asked how he is. All you can think about is shopping. What is wrong with you?" She pouted the entire time and barely spoke to us. Her biological mother and grandmother on her mom's side gave her whatever she wanted. My brother, unfortunately, was just the wallet, even though he tried to get her to live with him. His then-wife, who would have been her stepmother, had actual rules, which his daughter hated. That's why she didn't want to live with him. She's still a spoiled brat to this day, but my brother cut her off years ago when he finally said no to something, and she replied, "Whatever. It's not like you've ever been a real dad to me." I don't know what she's doing now and haven't seen her since she was about 15. She manipulated my aunt into leaving her own daughter's wedding and driving 2 hours to a friend's house so she could confront her boyfriend for cheating. Story 44. They have to be in control of every plan and every situation. If they are not in control, they make everyone else miserable. Story 45. Remember when parents would say, "You can be president." In this day and age, we know a child was never told no when they became president of the United States. Story 46. They treat no like it is a glitch in the simulation and keep asking until the universe crashes. Story 47. Trouble respecting others' boundaries. Invading others' personal space. Interrupting frequently. Impulsivity. Resisting authority figures. Pushing back against rules. Throwing adult temper tantrums. Story 48. When the actual parent tells you that they don't say no to their child at a family Christmas function, and the child starts eating all the Christmas desserts with their hands. I had to stand back, watching this with my own eyes, confused. My actual auntie looked at me and consoled me because my autism does not like people touching food as a whole with their hands. They cousin walked back with chocolate-covered hands. They had a meltdown due to having sticky hands, which affected their attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. The family didn't end up leaving for a long while. We say, "I told you so." Long story short, the mum got the eco-friendly wet wipes, cleaned the hands, and no one had dessert. Everybody left 2 hours after the incident. Long story short, the auntie helped me through the meltdown. I forgot that we had pavlova, an Australian dessert that is meringue-based, as she was helping me calm down. We got to have a massive slice each because only 10 people were left at the Christmas gathering. So it was a win-win scenario. Everyone left, we got pavlova, and my brother got half of the pavlova to take to his house. It was not bad. It was actually awesome for everyone, especially the family who couldn't say no to their precious little one. Story 49. Narcissism involves looking down on others and never asking why someone's opinion differs from their own. It simply negates other views while claiming superiority. Story 50. Judging by the child at kindergarten with my youngest, when they are told no by the supervisors and start crying, screaming, and yelling "that is unfair" repeatedly. Story 51. When they refuse to end a conversation until you concede to the point they are trying to make, ignoring statements like, "Yeah, okay, well, that's cool, but I'm done with this conversation," or "I don't want to talk about this anymore." Story 52. They overspend yet think they are good at saving. They have no idea what it means to be financially broke because their parents always got them everything they wanted. Story 53. They do things like make sex tapes with Ray J and follow that up by marrying and having children with Kanye. Story 54. I had a friend with autism who had heart problems as a child. When things did not go his way, he would clutch his chest as if having a heart attack and sometimes accidentally hurt himself, such as biting his tongue after falling back and sliding down a wall. That behavior might have worked on your mother as a child, but you are a 28-year-old man. Story 55. I have observed one woman do all of the following: give negative opinions without being prompted about any decision someone around her makes. For example, when someone said, "I'm moving to a new home," she responded, "Why? I hate that place." Refused to compromise on absolutely anything with her significant other, even when he tried to meet halfway. Argue with restaurant staff when they refused to give her a discount up front, just because she asked before even being seated. There is more, but I prefer not to recall it. Story 56. Aside from apologies that are simply sorry you got offended, they also apologize in ways that justify the behavior because of an emotion. I am sorry I said that, but I was just so mad. Because they truly believe that if you are upset enough, it justifies doing or saying horrible things. Sometimes this is followed by whatever they think you did to cause the emotion, making it all your fault again. Story 57. If children always get their way, they have very few, if any, coping skills for adversity and will become overwhelmed at the smallest inconvenience. Story 58. So this one guy, after I told him I could not date him because of some incompatibility issues, totally lost control and sent me about 2,500 words worth of text messages, in which the content was a repetition of, "Wow, look at what you did to me." I have not replied. Story 59. When they are genuinely confused by the concept, they just stand there waiting for someone else to tell them yes. Story 60. When they ask you to do something and you say no, then they ask why. Why? Because I do not want to. Am I explaining myself to you now? Story 61. I saw a child at Target, around 8 years old, yell at her mother for not wanting to buy her a shirt. Her mother gave in. Impolite behavior. Story 62. Every company that can offer you a line of credit tells that person no due to having their lines of credit maxed out and their credit score in the negative. Story 63. Signs include not respecting others' boundaries, interpreting no as a challenge to find another way, or keep asking until you break down and give in. If you do that once, it is done for. They will never respect you. The cruelty in trying to reinforce boundaries will escalate, and they will make you feel guilty for having any kind of boundaries. This includes your opinions or your perspective on things. Eventually, your entire experience of life will be filtered through what they think you should believe. You can detect these traits early in conversations as well as by observing them interacting with their parents. A lack of nurture and discipline is a sure way to create an abusive narcissistic child, and the adult they become will relentlessly victimize others. Story 64. They become extremely aggressive when they encounter a disagreement or are corrected or criticized by someone they do not respect. They respect people who can offer them things they want. Story 65. Constantly bragging about things that no one cares about, or going to someone's house as a guest and lashing out at their family members. Story 66. Entitled. They think they are always right. They believe other people should always do things for them that they can easily do themselves. Story 67. Entitlement is definitely annoying when you give someone something and they automatically think they deserve more. Story 68. The entitlement they feel not just towards everything but everyone. Some people truly feel like you owe them your time, your body, your favor, or in the worst cases, all of the above. Can be so exhausting. Story 69. When there is a waitlist for a full class and a student asks, "Can you just skip me ahead and put me in the class anyway?" This shows a lack of awareness of order and consideration for those on the waitlist. It demonstrates a complete lack of understanding of how simply wanting something, such as a preferred class time, can negatively impact others. This reflects a lack of metacognition. Story 70. When people are in a situation where there is a clearly defined and well-understood process to follow, and they are told something cannot happen because of that, their default response is often to say, "I'm sorry, I don't understand," followed by many questions and demands about why they cannot get what they want. For example, if they are trying to book a table at a restaurant and it is fully booked, it should be fairly obvious and easy to understand why the booking is not possible. However, to someone who has never been told no, it is something they cannot grasp. Story 71. Spoils children and sets no boundaries for them. Gives even when it is unreasonable. Raised a generation of entitled children. Story 72. Beware of the only child who was never disciplined by his parents. At any time of stress or even on a normal day because he is tired, being asked or told to put something in the dishwasher in a different way crosses his boundaries. Story 73. They get irrationally angry when things do not go their way. Normally, they do not mind if you disagree with their opinions, but if you disagree with their plans, they just lose control. I was friends with this guy since we were 12, I think. He threw a screaming tantrum and cut ties with me when I told him we could not hang out because I had to work an extra shift on a Saturday. We were 23 at the time. At this point, he had already dropped 2 university courses and had not worked a single day in his life. His father rented an apartment in one of the most expensive cities in the state for him to live the good life and paid all his bills. I have not seen him for almost 10 years now. I hope adult life has been a gentle teacher to him. Story 74. Bridezillous, for example, the one in these email exchanges. Story 75. When people say, "I'm sorry you feel that way," instead of acknowledging their role in hurting someone else, it often stems from being given everything they asked for as a child and never being held accountable for being wrong or causing harm. Story 76. When someone has opposing viewpoints to another person or group, they absolutely will not listen objectively or with an open mind to another's viewpoint. They cannot have a civil debate without name-calling, blaming, finger-pointing, or playing the victim. This could be regarding any subject: politics, religion, science, conspiracy theories, anything controversial or everyday matters, literally anything. They do not accept constructive criticism. For example, saying "my daddy said," or "I don't have to." Story 77. A friend of mine had a crush on a girl in our mutual friend group. She knew it but constantly ignored it. At a party one day, he completely blew up at her for talking to another guy. She firmly stated she was not interested in him and could talk to whoever she wanted. He caused a big scene with a tantrum and took off in his car, doing wheelies in the parking lot and making noise with everyone running after him. Spoiled only child, would you believe? Story 78. When you tell them no, they freeze. They just stand there, blinking and unmoving in their profound inability to comprehend. They have no idea what to do next because not immediately getting what they asked for feels so strange. I got that reaction from many people in college. Story 79. Meltdowns occur when individuals do not get their way. If they were never told no and were sheltered from negative emotions, they will have difficulty navigating the world as adults where things sometimes do not go as planned. I saw a woman having a meltdown on a plane because her seat was separated from her companion. It was not a big issue. They would see each other after landing. If there is another reason you cannot be apart, book ahead and ask the gate crew to resolve it before boarding. People who were never told no cannot cope effectively as adults. Story 80. Inability to offer a simple apology for a small problem or error. This is not about a larger or more complex mistake, but something simple like forgetting something or missing an email from someone. There are very low stakes in admitting that kind of mistake and apologizing for it. However, people who have been indulged for most of their lives find it hard to accept that they might have made even a small mistake. Story 81. When you walk into their room and they have a gaming personal computer, a PlayStation 5, a racing simulation rig, a flight simulation yoke, and a flight simulation joystick. This is literally my second cousin's room. Story 82. I have personally seen the following from a 21-year-old man. Temper tantrums, destroying doors, putting large holes in the drywall of various rooms, threatening violence, assaulting a sibling to get back at a parent for setting boundaries, shooting immediate family members with pellet guns, and my favorite, being told I would be beaten into a coma with the possibility of being shot with a bullet he picked out just for me because I interfered with him terrorizing his family. Story 83. They try to convince you and turn it into a yes. I am not talking about a mild response like, Are you sure? Can I try it a different way? As an initial reaction to a no, I am referring to a full explanation about why they cannot accept no, and how you need to change your mind because they are a good person or because they will pay you back later. This is always quickly followed by insults and degradation. Story 84. Extreme entitlement and refusal to accept the answers they are given. I work in student housing, and we have policies and procedures for all of our residents. I always have a handful of these individuals who are really adults over 20 that complain and provide sob stories about why they couldn't pay rent on time and why I should waive their late fee because they had the flu or other reasons. I have even had several people call me names because they were charged for damaging property. I have an email saved where someone, a few years ago, called me a stinky dada head. He was 22 at the time, because I deducted $100 from his deposit for property damage and would not return it, even though he said he was sorry. Story 85. Overall, acting like a spoiled brat, not being able to accept it when they are wrong, and being a hypocrite about everything. Thinking they are really good at arguing when in reality they just make stuff up and say no every time someone makes a good point. Fighting over mundane stuff because they want to feel superior. Antagonizing people they feel are below them. Story 86. They consistently interrupt others or ask for everyone's attention. I have a couple of friends who never let anyone else be the center of attention. They constantly interrupt others, call for everyone to stop talking and listen to them, talk nonstop about nothing, and do not let anyone interject. Story 87. They take being told no as a personal attack. You can politely decline something totally reasonable, and suddenly they act offended, defensive, or even angry. It is as if boundaries are foreign to them because they have never had to respect one before. Story 88. As a substitute teacher, I see this all the time. Students throw fits or continue to badger until they are told otherwise. Story 89. Thinks they own the place. Doesn't understand when they are wrong. Blindly asserts anything they say as fact. When questioned, immediately attacks the person and vilifies them for challenging their views. Projects their own flaws onto others. Narcissistic and needy. Always talking about themselves. Acts as if they can do no wrong. Is the first to criticize and the last to accomplish anything. Devalues hard work. Relying on others to do everything for them. Believes government and homeowners associations are means of controlling people, seeing them as roughly the same. Frequently visits Subway and Burger King because they offer food their way, reflecting a shallow understanding of true value in life. Uses childish terms in adulthood such as adulting and fur babies to mask their immaturity. Views adulthood with disdain, struggling mentally as they grow older to justify their sad personality, character, and behavior. Story 90. I have a friend. Once we went out and drank. I was buzzed and drunk. We were sitting in a 24/7 restaurant to sober up and eat. We were talking, and all I said was one sentence. I drank more tonight. He got so furious and started yelling and blaming me. Story 91. I don't think it is that simple. All of the comments so far sound to me like attention deficit hyperactivity disorder or autism spectrum disorder or neurodivergent people. There are a lot of them, but that has nothing to do with the fact that they always got their way as children. I think it is more of a deep disappointment when someone else clearly expresses their boundaries. How this manifests often has to do with what behavioral patterns have been established as a child, adolescent, or young adult. Story 92. So, I just got accepted to an Ivy League school. Can I go? No, son, your mother and I are teachers. We cannot afford that. Okay, I will just mortgage my future on college loans for my art history degree. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.